Okay.
Okay, I'd like to call the order the Tuesday, June 15th, 2021 Village of Ashwaubenon Finance and Personnel Committee. Roll call, please.
Chris Herbal,
Here.
Allison Williams,
Here.
Allison Burnett,
Here.
Tracy Flukie,
Here.
and Tom Selk.
Here.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Excuse me. All right. 3, action on the agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion to approve and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Action on the minutes.
Motion to approve?
Second.
We have a motion to approve and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion approved. Comments from the public, I believe, do we have something? Oh, no, that's, never mind, I was thinking of something else. Comments from the public must be limited to items not on the agenda, must state name and address, limited to 5 minutes. Board's role is to listen and not discuss the item. Personal issues cannot be discussed, nor individual named. Board is not able to take action at this meeting. Do we have anybody from the public with comments or via Zoom or anything?
Doesn't look like it.
Nothing, no comments from the public. Okay, we'll move on. Action items. A, action on EMS billing rates. Chief?
All right. So we haven't done a revision on our billing rates since 2014. So we have a company that we use called LifeQuest. They do all of our EMS billing and contracting. They put together an annual statement for us, kind of gives us an idea of what our comparables charge for the various services. So our deputy chief, Nick Kozlowski, put together a nice packet here for you to kind of give you an outline on exactly what we're charging now and what our comparables charge. You can see that for the most part, we are below those comparables or below the average for many of them. So we are recommending, based on LifeQuest's recommendations as well, to adjust those fees so we are more in line with our comparables. With that, I will answer any questions you may have.
Chief, our residents really get dinged on this. I understand nothing's been adjusted since, what is it, 14?
Yep.
Which is a long time. So obviously something's gonna, have to get adjusted. But throughout this, I think, reading through it, the residents really get dinged. Is that a product of, in the past, that rates being set up purposely that way, and this survey kind of readjusting that accordingly, or what's?
I guess I'm not quite sure what you mean, because for most of the charges, our non-residents are actually higher than our residents. So I'm not really sure what you're getting at there.
Oh, unless I was looking at it when I was looking at it yesterday. Okay, maybe I could have been looking at it backwards.
Yeah, really, the residents are on the cheaper end of the spectrum.
Oh, right,
and
right.
It's the
Oh, no,
non-residents.
I mean the increases. Yeah, I think I was speaking correctly on that. Residents 650 to 725. Yeah, I was speaking correctly on that. 650, the increase.
So you're talking about the increase overall?
The increase overall, yeah.
Yeah. That's just to bring it more in line with our comparables as well. If you look at the average of what we're charging, what everyone is charging, like if you look at the first line for the residents, the average is $721. We're just well below the average right now, and that's why it looks like there's so much of an increase, but we're really only $4 over what the average is of our comparables.
Okay.
What is the
most of these is reimbursed by insurance, correct? Do we know how much is reimbursed or not?
You know, most of it can be. However, having looked at it for the first time when I first came on here, we only get about 50% of these costs back. So even though they are billed to the insurance, a lot of times we're not getting it all billed back. And I don't know why that is exactly, but I was told when I got here to expect about 50% of our costs to be recovered from these claims.
And if you do a lift assist, none of that's reimbursed.
Right, right.
That's what I thought. Okay.
For the lift assist, can I just clarify that? It looks like right now we have 2 free and then it's 125 per time. So
Right now, yep.
what Nick is recommending is we go for 200 for all, starting at the second. So then really we're going to give 1 free lift
Correct.
from now on. Okay,
Yep, correct.
thank you.
If I may, Trustee Zerbal, I think in talking with President Kardasky, I think there's been an effort in the past to maintain a competitive non-resident rate as it relates to our other providers in the area that this EMS, the EMS provider charges. But there's been an effort to some degree suppress any increases to the resident rate. And so I think that's why you see that discrepancy.
Yep.
Ultimately, what their recommendation is to bring that more in line with what the other area providers are charging, whether it be for resident or non-resident.
Okay, that kind of answers. So that was kind of,
Right.
lack of a better term, purposely done in the past. That was kind of done for a reason.
I believe so, correct.
Okay.
Correct.
With the idea, and I know I wasn't on the board, to try to suppress the resident rate, would the idea be now to kind of moving forward, stay more in line with the recommendations so that the residents don't see this
Yeah.
$100, $125 jump?
Yeah, we're going to review this annually to see if we need to make any further recommendations, but we certainly don't want to get into the situation again where we're having to make a big jump like this.
Yep, okay.
Yep.
With the volume of events that we have here in Ashwaubenon and, you know, obviously a sizable stretch of 41, what would you say estimate ratio is of residents served versus non-residents?
I don't have those numbers, so I couldn't tell you off the top of my head.
So this is going to go on to the village board, correct?
Yes.
With the questions I had, I'm wondering what the philosophy is going to be on the village board. Are we going to continue to have, is the board going to continue to have the philosophy of suppressing those rates
Did-
for residents?
I'm just trying to think. I mean, I've been on the board, obviously not finance and personnel, but I can't remember these coming. Have they always come forth
It's been a long time.
just for probably non-residents?
Well, it's
I don't
been at
know.
least 7 years since anyone's brought this forward, so
Okay, so Chris, I think the whole board hasn't seen these numbers in a long time.
Right.
It
I
hasn't been
wasn't on the
brought
board
forward in
either, so I
7
don't-
years.
Yeah.
You and I are only
Right.
4 years in, so,
Yeah.
okay.
Sometimes it just takes a new set of eyes to look at it and then,
Right.
oh, we
Exactly.
haven't looked at that for 10 years. Oh, no, you know.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, it's unfortunate we have to do a bigger jump right now, but I totally see why, and I think it's necessary. So I'll make a motion to approve the EMS rate adjustment and adopt LifeQuest recommendations based on the comparable fees.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. All right, Agenda B. HR Audit Summary Report. Joel?
Thank you, committee. Good evening. I'll have Ann Wetstein come on up from our HR consulting group and provide an overview of the initial audit summary. So we are still working towards finalizing the actual written report and kind of going through a variety of different aspects still. as part of this process. But as promised to the committee last month, we wanted to have Ann come in and provide an update to the committee as to where we stand with the overall audit. By and large, it looks like, based on the report, that much of the items that we have are relatively in compliance. There might be some things that we need to correct from a procedural standpoint, but by and large, we are in compliance. But there are a number of items that were identified for best practices that we're working through. So I'll allow Ann to kind of talk through some of those items, and then I'll also touch on a few of the priorities post-audit that we will be planned to work on over the next 6 or 8 months.
Right, so like Joel said, one of the things that we went through, and I think everyone was provided with a copy, is that compliance portion as well as the best practice. So, and on the compliance side, really everything looked really good. There's some areas that we updated in terms of some of the employment files and just how that's categorized, and some of the things that they now suggest to pull out of a normal HR file, or just to have separate, just based on some of the employment law and things that are coming through. So right now, working on going through some of those files, which again, were constructed great. It looks like there's really good documentation through them all. So we're just gonna kind of go through each of those and see how we can clean them up a little bit, go through that. And then start on some of the best practice areas. So like Joel mentioned, we're looking at everything from job descriptions to some of the language in the employee handbook, just more boilerplate type language that just should have been added probably over the last couple of years. Again, that's continually changing. So that's something that you want to look at annually anyways. So that's nothing to be alarmed about. It's just as those things come through in the courts and some of the other things that pop up, they're just areas that you want to look at. So going through that, and then obviously just getting acclimated with some of the staff and reaching out and knowing that we're a resource. So we've had several managers and things like that throughout the organization at different departments reach out just to talk through situations, which is great because that's what we're here for, right? To make sure that if they have questions or need guidance or need to know how to have a conversation with an employee, whatever that might be. So that's been a focus here probably the last 2 weeks. And over about the last 4 weeks, I've been doing that on-site time. So about an hour and a half, 2 hours, twice a week to, again, get through the files and kind of brainstorm with Joel on some of these projects that we want to work on. And then just being available for the managers to pop in and out and go through some situations or questions, or there's some new positions that are opening up, so helping with some of that. But overall, it's been great. So now it's time to go on to, like Joe mentioned, some of those the best practice projects, which I know you had a couple written down that you wanted to go through. But overall, like I said, the organization as itself as a whole is in really great shape. We do not have too much that I said, like Joel said, that was hot or red items that we said, hey, we need to come in and we need to fix this right away or focus on this. So it's kind of nice to have this timetable of, okay, here's the projects we want to do. Let's map this out over the next 6 or 8 months. Probably put Joel to work on some of them, and give some guidance, but it's been really smooth so far.
Some of the items that I'll touch on really quickly too, that as part of the audit process, were really quick fixes. So one of them was employee posters and the employee bulletin board. Those items hadn't been updated for a number of years in order to maintain compliance. Those do need to be updated periodically based on updates to employment law. So we did go through and we ordered a subscription to a provider that does that for us. And so that has been taken care of. That was really easy. That was simply done. The other element is this past year, there have been many law changes as it relates to the continuation of benefits or COBRA coverage, in particular as it relates to COVID, whether it be CARES Act or the federal Coronavirus Relief Act or this new legislation, ARPA, that came out this past year. There have been a variety of changes and mandates that have come through COBRA. We had been administering COBRA benefits internally amongst ourselves, and just trying to stay on top of all of the changes and making sure that we're maintaining compliance through that timeline is rather difficult. In fact, Ann and her firm even said, we don't even like doing it. We really like to find people that specialize in COBRA administration. So we went ahead and we went and re-engaged a relationship that we had previously with a benefit provider to provide that coverage for us. And so that's worked out for our benefit as well. Couple quick hot button items that we'll be working on, as Ann had mentioned. We're going through our employee files and making sure that they're appropriately maintained. But beyond that, we're also looking at job descriptions. So that's a key priority for my position, in making sure that job descriptions are current, up to date, and reflective of the duties and responsibilities of each position. And so at this point, we have assembled all of what we perceive to be current job descriptions for the employees, and we're going to standardize those at this point. So a lot of departments had been creating their own job descriptions under their own kind of purview, and what we'd like to do is standardize that so that each job description follows the same format and style and meets all of the minimum requirements that a job description should have. And so that will be one of that process.
Right, and we've put that kind of towards the front because, again, your job description, right, some of the things that we've heard throughout is communication, expectations, clarity of roles, and, hitting some of those items. So without a clear job description, right, for these employees come in, especially as you continue to grow or bring new people in, that clarity of those roles and really everything else that kind of stems from that, because how do you manage their performance and everything else. So we kind of rated that a little bit higher to work on that here as one of the first projects.
Tied to that, after we kind of identify those roles and responsibility, is just doing a review of FALSA, or Fair Labor Standards Act, to ensure that we have employees that are classified correctly as either exempt or non-exempt. This has been a challenge in the past for the village, and it has come under question from a variety of different employee groups. So we're going to do a wholesale collective review of those exempt and non-exempt staff to make sure that they are classified correctly. We are obligated to ensure that our employees are classified under the appropriate classification. So this is something that anytime there is really kind of a change to a job description or role, that should be part of that review. So that's an important component of that. Beyond that, we are also looking at updating our employee handbook. This is an area that has created some consternation and maybe some confusion amongst our employee groups. And so what we want to do is make sure that that's updated and that the employee handbooks provide adequate clarity to the policies and procedures that the village will use to employ. One of the components that we'll do as part of that review is we'll be assembling an employee handbook review committee. So these will be employees throughout the organization, regardless of position or status. So we'll be looking for people that are our field workers, our middle management and executive management staff. And really the sole purpose of this committee is to take a hard look at the written language in the handbook so that it provides clarity to the employees. Not necessarily looking for them to devise policy. That's really ultimately up to our leadership team and this committee and our board, but have a good understanding and interpretation of the handbook so that it is clear and everyone is on the same page moving forward. And then beyond that, we'll be looking at, tied to that concept is a training program. So one of the comments here in the best practices is coming up with some annual training regimens. We've had training in the past, and it's kind of been on an as-needed basis, or what would be perceived as needed. What we want to do is try to make sure that we're touching on the training requirements that are necessary on an annual basis, and then also providing a routine training program that may not be necessarily required annually, but is of good practice or best practice for that point of view. A couple of components to that. Obviously, we have the in-house resource now and the expertise to provide much of that training, but we also have the ability to utilize our liability insurance provider. We're insured by the League of Wisconsin Municipalities, and they have basically an online university tool that is now available to our staff. And we'll begin setting up that university so that we can schedule trainings for our employees that they can do at really kind of the convenience of their schedule within a permitted timeline that we establish. So at this point, things are going really well, as Ann had mentioned. They are getting utilization from staff on a variety of topics. And I think that the employees are starting to recognize that they are available to their disposal And I think things are going well thus far. So with that, if you have any questions for Ann or myself, we'd be happy to answer them for you.
I just wanted to comment that I'm really ecstatic at how much you hit the ground running with this. You know, it was the goal of this committee last year to see either a part-time or a full-time staff member in the HR role in coming years. And I think that really doing the legwork on some of these things, particularly on the compliance side, is going to make sure that when that new employee comes into the organization, that there will be good groundwork and they're not going to spend, you know, their first 6 months to a year cleaning up compliance issues. They'll come into an office that's really being run properly. So thank you for doing the legwork for that future employee.
You bet.
I would totally agree. I think the report was really well written. It gave us a lot of really good information. One of the things I really liked in there, and I think Terry had mentioned this when you guys talked, kind of the hidden paycheck idea, that people understand, you know, they have their wage, but they also have all these benefits that are a cost to the village and also are a benefit to them. I think that's really important for people to understand better their benefits and what they get and how important that is to them, but also the cost and the benefit that the village is giving them. So I would recommend that's something you look into and maybe, you know, start to implement, because I think it helps with employee morale a little bit. It also makes them want to understand their benefits maybe a little bit better because they see what it is maybe more clearly as they're moving forward. And also, you know, having, you know, meeting with the new employees and really talking to them about the benefits and what they have and how they work and how they implement them and how they get involved with that, I think is a really good part of this whole thing. So I would recommend you go ahead with that.
Good. Yeah, and a lot of these areas that Joel just mentioned, I mean, a lot of them come from those beginning stages, the onboarding stages, whether it's the handbook, the job description, you know, making sure that the managers are getting different types of training on how they administer policies or whatever that might be, all goes into kind of that value, right? That employee that, hey, we value you. We know that so many are focused, right? What is that base compensation or that dollar amount that I'm making? But you guys have a great benefit program. You have robust perks and things like that these employees get that you can offer that a lot of other either smaller organizations or anyone else throughout, you know, Northeastern Wisconsin doesn't offer. So making sure that you're going through that, and the benefit packet is great and it's got all this information, but a lot of time benefits have changed so much drastically, even just in the last 3, 4, 5 years, and are continuing to do so. We find that employees are having more and more questions, and a lot of times they're signing up for these things and they don't really even know what it is, but they know they need to have it. So let's help them and really focus on that education piece in those first 2, 3, 4 weeks to really get them to invest and want to stay here and help with retention. So all of these projects that we kind of rated and how we want to do these really are kind of focusing on that retention and that investment from everybody. So yeah, I think it'll be great.
That's a great point, Tracy. I think you're spot on with that. And that ties in with the program you ran, Joel, and, you know, coming up with a village direction, you know, to live, work, and play here, you know, the benefits of the community. And that ties right in with that. But that any organization could use something, could benefit from that. But that's a great point. I like that. Yeah.
The other part I really like is the 30-day HR review with a new employee. And I think that's really important, again, to catch, maybe there's things going on that you can catch early and then get those straightened out or make them understand better or whatever. And the HR person is one of the first people they're going to really meet and get involved with. So to have that person have that outlet again, I think is a really good idea too.
Yeah, focusing a lot on, I mean, the managers and the people that are managing the day-to-day, right? They're making sure that, hey, they're doing the job right, they're showing up on time, they're respectful, you know, they're fitting in with the culture, those types of things. But being able to see, how did we prepare this person to come in? Were we ready for them? You know, drive that culture and morale, and not so much on all these technical things that they're doing, because typically they come in with those technical skills where we probably wouldn't have chosen them. Again, a big portion of is, are they going to fit? But they still have to be able to do the job. So on the HR front, we're not too much worried about that. We're how do we do as an organization and getting that feedback. So really We've implemented these probably over the last 3 years with all of our clients, and what we've noticed is within the first 2 or 3 months, you can start to gain some common themes and what are some areas we can change. That's where kind of this more focused benefit meeting one-on-one, that's where those ideas were driven from, is because you're hearing that type of feedback. So I'm hoping that over the next 2 or 3 months, as we bring in some of these new hires, being able to get some of those common themes, bring them back and come up with some ideas to how we can help.
All right, any other questions, comments? Okay, thank you, good information.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Ann.
All right, items for next agenda, anybody?
I just have a question. Are there any other services that we provide that we have not looked at our cost for 7, 8 years that maybe we need to look into and see, are we market value? Do we need to look into it further? And maybe that's just something to talk about next agenda, or see if staff has a chance to look at some of our contracts and see
Yeah,
where we're at.
one of the concepts going into this next budget cycle would be to review our fees and charges schedule. This just happened to come up based on meetings that we've had with our EMS provider, so that it made sense to bring it forward now. But what I'd like to do is each budget cycle is take a look at that complete fee and charges schedule and then tie that to budget so that it kind of fits that fiscal year.
All right, if we've got nothing for next agenda, items for next agenda, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.